Welcome to the Baron and Cabot Podcast. I'm Mark Pearson, the Managing Director of Baron and Cabot, where we specialise in UK property investment opportunities, catering to both seasoned investors and newcomers alike. In this podcast, we will be giving you market updates, investment strategies, and even review the latest developments in the UK property industry. This is the Baron and Cabot Podcast. So to give you a bit of an idea of what we've been talking about and what we've been doing this week, we've had a really big increase in transactions. Week on week throughout this year, we've seen transaction increases. There's more and more confidence coming into the market and an expectation with investors that mortgage prices will drop when the base rate drops. Obviously, some of the big news was that the base rate wasn't reduced. The Bank of England decided to keep the base rate as it was. What this means for us is that it doesn't necessarily mean that mortgage rates won't come down. Often mortgage rates come down below the base rate as banks give a 2 or 5 year plan and hedge against the rates dropping down later on and the banks making a profit. So we are seeing mortgage prices come down. What this means for investors is that the expectation then is, and what normally happens when that happens, is that property prices will start to increase. And we're certainly seeing that with some of the rates that were coming out. We're seeing 1.1, 1.2% growth over the month, which is the highest growth that we've seen in about 18 months. All in all, we're seeing a lot of confidence really driving into the market. There's a lot of investors trying to get in now before some predicted property price growths. And with inflation easing, what we're starting to see is that the metrics are starting to look where you'd want them to be for a property price growth. That, of course, doesn't mean prices will be guaranteed to grow. There's no guarantees in investment. But the best investors don't need a guarantee. What they need is an opportunity and some facts that back up a prediction of one way or the other. And certainly right now for 2024, 2023 was certainly a rental market. It was where we saw massive rental growth. 2024 certainly looks much more like it's going to come into a capital growth where property prices increase. And the last week has really compounded some of the confidence within that. To give you some insights, some behind the scenes in terms of what's been going on, we were over in MIPIM, which is in Cannes in France. And this is a property exhibition, but whereby most of the major developers and people involved in property visit MIPIM every year, and we discuss property and what's happening in the market. The market looks strong. A lot of developers are building a lot, and there's a huge amount planned in for this year, both in to fractionalize sales, so individual apartment sales, but also a lot of funds and funders getting back into the UK market to build big blocks of apartments purely to rent out. This is a really good sign for the market because when the funders are in and they're spending 15, 20 million pounds on a building to retain it and rent it out, it gives you a lot more confidence as an individual investor that you're also on the right track by investing in the UK at the moment. As well as some of the big developments, there's also some more luxury developments being planned in. We were speaking to a lot of the big developers in the UK and some of the smaller contractors in the UK as well. There's a lot going on in major cities like London, Birmingham, Manchester, and in terms of pushing the boundaries of what we can deliver. Within Manchester, as an example, super luxury is starting to come into the market. We've already seen the W come in with a branded residence, which pushed the average price per square foot up quite a bit. And there was a question as to whether that could be the end of that would be the top and that would be the best within Manchester. It certainly will be the best in Manchester for a couple of years, but there's a lot of plans in place for even bigger, even more luxury. And there's a lot going around. None of them confirmed, but there's a lot going around the market at the moment. Equally, Birmingham, because of their HS2 and all the different parts that are going into Birmingham, the Smithfield Market Plan and various investments going into Birmingham, there's also huge confidence going into there. A lot of the developers from Manchester, I think, would like to be in Birmingham because the story is very similar. But on top of the story being quite similar, Birmingham obviously has the benefit of being closer to London and an easier commute. So even more large developments look like they're coming into Birmingham strategically within the city centre. And most of these developments we will be in and around, whether we decide to take them on or pass them by. We certainly have them within our sites, and we're working towards bringing in much more product within London, Birmingham and Manchester as our key investment areas. Also, as the market's getting more resilient, tougher, and we look like we're on an upward trajectory with the market, your second and third tier areas are starting to become stronger again. These are areas whereby there may be towns or smaller cities where you tend to get a higher yield, a higher rental income comparative to the property price, but these properties tend to be slightly less resilient against market fluctuations. What's happening now is these areas are starting to gain confidence. As the market's gaining confidence, we're starting to see more and more investments in some of these smaller towns and cities, places such as Stockport, Derby, and many, too many to mention right now in terms of investment areas are starting to see some growth. In terms of investors and where people are investing from, so obviously a lot of the investment at the moment is still going into Birmingham, London, Manchester, but the investors, we're seeing much more growth in terms of investors coming back in from the GCC, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Although their local markets are looking very strong, we're also seeing people looking to diversify their portfolio a little bit and also getting more and more confidence in the UK market. Equally, Asia, which had been slightly more quiet, is starting to wake up a little bit, and we're seeing a lot more investment coming across from Asia, as well as the UK itself, whereby UK investors can often be sometimes slower to invest in their home market, primarily because sometimes it's harder to see the wood for the trees, so to speak. But now UK investors are very, very aggressively getting back into the market. Obviously, as well, African investors are being very, very strong within investment in the UK market. Areas where there's a lot of inflation, we're seeing South America and in various places, as well as Africa, where there's a lot of inflation. These clients are investing quite heavily in the UK as well. So what we're starting to see is developments come in, sell out very, very quickly. And I think we're probably going to see the start of new developments coming in at a slightly higher price bracket than what we've been running at over the last 6-7 months. So I think that'll be quite interesting to see what comes in there. That was a very short snapshot into where we're up to. Over the coming weeks, I'll have people with me where we'll be talking about what's going on within that week. Now, it might be a specialist within mortgages. It might be one of my colleagues who specializes in one of the cities of the UK. Or it might be somebody that we can talk about more in detail in terms of the macroeconomics or things that are going to happen or predictions within the markets. All in all, what we want to bring to you is the most up-to-date understanding of the internal conversations within the property industry that you may not hear anywhere else. Welcome to the Baron and Cabot Podcast. I'm Mark Pearson, the Managing Director of Baron and Cabot, where we specialise in UK property investment opportunities, catering to both seasoned investors and newcomers alike. In this podcast, we will be giving you market updates, investment strategies, and even review the latest developments in the UK property industry. This is the Baron and Cabot Podcast.